this not to be a presentation. Obviously, I love it to be a dialogue. And so as much as we can using technology, feel free to mute, feel free to unmute. Don't wait for me to answer your questions. So maybe as I'm presenting, I'll get you to just mute yourself there. And then, but please just jump in. Don't raise a hand or anything else. Just jump in with questions. I think, recently I was reading a Gallup survey and a Gallup article, and it talked about, sort of what do employees need from us now? Now, Liam and I had already talked about, really thinking through the concept of how do we increase resilience? How do we coach resilience in our people? And so we've morphed. We're going to move very much into that area of leading me, yes, and leading others, yes. But how do we develop and continue to develop resilience within ourselves and within our people? And as always, we're trying to create a process so that, it can be handed down, it can be passed on. So this idea by Jim Harter is not a new one. But, in times of crisis, his suggestion is there's a couple of directions, right? We can go the fear, helplessness, and victimization route. And would we just put on the table, leaders, that that's going to happen, not only with our people, but would we agree that, at times we're going to be there? Our business is probably a little bit like some of your businesses, and I've been really feeling for people in Alberta, because it's a double whammy. Like, it's crazy. And I'd love to, down the road, hear some of your stories. But ours is probably like yours, right? Some of you, things have dried up. And so we've had to transition online. We've had to move in a new direction. So the other option is sort of this idea, he calls it self-actualization and engagement. So how do we really, I don't like to use the word energy when I'm talking to you people in Alberta, but how do we, sustain that energy now that we're in a new mode? Many of us working from home, many of us not in the office together. So, that idea is really what we want to sort of think through a little bit. And, it's interesting, this author says that on the latter, if leaders can have a clear way forward, human beings are amazingly resilient. Now, what's a little scary, leaders, is I've been thinking about that. I mean, that's easy to say. Most of us are like this, right? We are high-performing leaders. But most of us in today's COVID environment, maybe not you, but certainly me, we're living in this. How do you drive, right, the highest, quickest car in the world, in fog? You don't. So how do we know the future? Well, I'm not sure we can, but we can control what we can control. And so we're going to talk through that process of how can we take the energy, the ideas around energy that we have, and make sure that we're getting them to our people. Been thinking a lot about resilience. I've been thinking a lot about your team. And, I'm reading a book right now by a guy from Google, and the book's called Search Inside Yourself. They had to have search in the title of the book, didn't they? But this idea of resilience, he says this: resilience is our ability to overcome obstacles. Now, can we put on the table, leaders, that not every obstacle is going to get overcome? And I just put that on the table, and can I give you a little background from hockey? Obviously, we don't win every game, but the goal of the participation, the goal to compete, is to be the best we can be, get our best game on the ice. And if the opponent beats us, they beat us. But we know that we're going to get our best game on the ice. And I think this is the idea around resilience that we want to talk about. So how do we overcome those obstacles? If you go to dictionary.com, looks a lot like that, right? It's the ability to return. It's the ability to recover. And those are great skills, obviously, in this amazing day of COVID. Well, I had to give you a little bit of hockey. That's crazy, isn't it? I mean, just to think about August, having hockey in August or whatever that plays out, it's like an upside down world we're living in right now. And we're all, the most amazing thing for me is sometimes it's certain sectors, but pretty much now, I know not everybody's in this, in the same, area, that, some companies are actually thriving because of the positioning that they have. If you're in groceries or something like that, and others are struggling. So really an interesting piece. And of course, I had to bring you just a little bit of NHL hockey. Unfortunately for you, that's number 11 there, trying to score some goals for the Canadiens. That's a long time ago, ladies and gentlemen. That's the old Montreal Forum. That's crazy. Now, that's every goal I ever scored. So that's it for the hockey. I'm sorry. That's all you're going to get.
Ryan, I have a question.
Yes, please.
How much of that reward playing hockey is intrinsic and how much of it is extrinsic?
Oh, that's a great question. So I would say that especially the best example I can give you is playoffs. By the time the NHL player has headed into April and has finished the season, the salary stops. So in other words, you don't get paid a monthly fee. And it's fascinating because I think that's when we get our best hockey, is when they're playing for, when us players, we're playing, right, for the intrinsic, for the team and for ourselves. That's a great question. And I fired out to the group, like, what about your team? Extrinsic, intrinsic. Somebody got a thought there from your team? Certainly from the game of hockey, I would say that it depends on the player. And I'm sure that that's true of your team. Many of our people have intrinsic motivation. It's completely inside. And we're going to talk just quickly today. We'll do a quick review around the inner game. What drives the inner game? What drives that intrinsic motivation versus the extrinsic, which could be the money or the other things? And I know that many of you have read this, but Gallup does a great job in looking at intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So let's quickly look at Leading Me. And I don't know if you've seen this before. I really like this little video, and I want to talk about it a bit. Just a sec here. It doesn't like to play when I do that. So here you go. Let me know that you can see it. So you got to see this again. Watch this. Look at how happy the goalie is here. Oh, so good. So good. So here's my point, leaders. For me, and I know this is not easy, but this is a challenge that I have for myself, is during these times, and I know you challenge each other at the tech level, is we got to stay in the game, right? Leaders, I can only do this because I've been in some of your shoes, some of you. And I challenge myself to stay in the game. A couple of examples. Number one, we had my wife Jenny and I were one of 4 partners in a small company that was building small sheets of ice, so ice arenas across North America, franchising them, and it was about training. But we were about 10 years too early. The money dried up. And here's what I learned about losing a business is that the thinking of the primaries went bankrupt before the company went bankrupt. In other words, my energy ran out before the energy of the company ran out. And you know, when I look back, leaders, I have no regrets. I'm not living in the past. But when I look back, if we could have hung in there for another couple of years, we could have turned the corner. And with what people pay for training now, we would be positioned perfectly. Regrets? No. Nope. Made the right decision. We'll keep moving. Could have I done it differently? Potentially. So here's what I want to say is we got to stay in the game during these hard times, right, leaders? Here's what I've learned from being a president of and a CEO of an American Hockey League team in Abbotsford, British Columbia. We were actually the Calgary Flames affiliate playing hockey in Abbotsford for a while. And here's what I learned, is that my people emulate my energy. Agreed? Our people emulate our energy. So how we show up during COVID-19, right? How we, in essence, it's scary, but we almost mask our fears sometimes, right? Is how they're going to show up. So we want to stay in the game. Number two, let's have some fun with this. We got to take some new shots on net. I hope coming out of our time together this morning, I hope that we'll be refreshed a little bit to take some new shots, right? Like they're not all going to go in. A whole bunch of them are going to hit the, they're going to hit the crossbar, but we got to take some new shots. And I don't know if you're like me, leaders. This is totally me. This is how you play in the NHL. Eventually, after you get your reps in, eventually the bounces go your way. And isn't that the way that we seem to do life, right? You got to put the work in. And at first, nothing comes together. It doesn't feel like it. And then eventually the bounces come our way. So I just wanted to lay that out as we start to think about resilience and just to challenge each other, right? We're as much as we can, we're going to stay in this game. We know our people emulate our energy. We know we're going to take some new shots on net. We've got to try some things. This is unprecedented. This is brand new stuff. And eventually, this thing's going to turn the corner. Covey said that. Covey said that leadership's a choice, not a position. Wow. I'd love us to spend an hour brainstorming that, but I think I want to take it here. And many of you have read Viktor Frankl's stuff. He's just amazing, right? And this idea that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose. Boy, that's such a powerful piece. To choose and respond. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And really, leaders, I'd love us to focus in on that space now for the next little bit. For the next, half an hour, maybe the next hour. that space between stimulus and response. I think we've had enough stimulus in our life, but really, what is the frame, right, that we're going to use to respond as things keep coming at us, and that's the goal of our time together, and we'll sort of connect around resilience. I talked to Bobby Smith the other day. Bobby's the tall guy there. We played together in Montreal. In the middle is Chris Chelios, and the little guy you can't see is Mats Naslund. And I don't know, I forget who scored the goal. It doesn't matter. But I talked to Bobby Smith last week, and he owns the Halifax Moosehead now in the CHL. And he said he read a book by about JFK, and in the book they had JFK's favorite poem. Can I read it to you? Bullfight critics now on row line the enormous plaza full, and there is only one who knows, but there is only one who knows, and he's the one who fights the bull. And the thing that I really appreciate about all of you, and I know Dick and I know others on this call a little bit, you guys are, you're in the, you're in the arena, right? This is happening to you. And I used to say this about, certainly people that were in media. They could talk about it and they could, give opinion about it, but they had no idea what we were experiencing on the ice in Philadelphia. So I appreciate where you're at, and I want our team to really just spend a couple of minutes and an hour or so together to really think through this idea of resilience and encourage each other. Here's what I'd like to do, and I want to open up. I'm just going to go. Actually, let me go. So obviously 9/11, and I have a bit of an interesting story around 9/11, but I'm going to ask a couple of questions. We're going to really focus in on questions today, and what kind of questions help us to change the energy of our team, whether they're in our building or they're working from home, and that's going to be one of our goals. And Dick, do I get to pick on you? You're my buddy. Dick, where were you on 9/11? I think we might have talked about this, but just remind me, what was your situation when 9/11 hit?
I was on a motorbike trip in Oregon. And I remember the morning quite well. I went to a coffee shop in the morning and everybody was crying.
Wow. What an amazing experience. And we all have those, don't we? Dick, how about that second question, like from your side, and then maybe from the people around you, how did you rebound and recover, from that situation around 9/11?
Well, it was an emotional situation because it didn't actually impact business in any way. In fact, I think that there was an increase in oil price, which might have created a lot more activity at the time.
Right. So 9/11 obviously, brings up, if we were 10 years down the road, we're going to look back at coronavirus and we're going to have immediate feelings. We're going to have an immediate reminder of what we were doing, what we had to do. And then coming out of that 10 years down the road, we're going to look back and we're going to say, wow, look at the changes it had, and here's how we responded. So I want you to keep that in mind as we sort of think about resilience. And this idea, my first prof at school, I went back to school at 45. I thought I'd better go back and learn something so I could spend time with people like you. I had a little bit of experience, a little bit of life experience, and then I went back and did a master's degree in leadership business. And my first prof said that, and I think he's right. Leadership's about change. And that has been our life, hasn't it? As a leader, it feels like change is increasing. The other thing that we want to continue to focus in on from our first session together, now some of you, we're going to do a very quick review because some of you weren't there. So we'll do a quick review on the 5 mindsets that are going to drive our company. But this idea is that those 5 mindsets turn into 5 pieces of language. And we'll spend some time thinking there. All right, so somebody's trying to get a hold of me here. Just a sec. How come this isn't? Let me just go off here. Okay. And I think, is everybody good? We're good? There we go. I'm going to more, and I'm going to chat, and there's a couple of jerseys behind her. All right, I'll let you guys run chat. That's funny. I got the jerseys. What is that jersey? That is awesome. I'm going to have to go on here and just 1 second because I didn't hear.
Yeah, you can unmute Shannon. She's muted.
Okay.
Oh, she did it herself.
Which one were you asking about?
The one just, I guess, to the right of you. Has it got a C on it, Shannon? Oh, that's cool.
Fantastic.
I was looking at the Pittsburgh Penguin one. Those are awesome.
My
Thank
dad's a
you.
junkie.
That's awesome. Very cool. Now I got to get out of here again and turn this off. There we go. I wish, Shannon, over the years that I would have kept more sweaters. Certainly, you know, I would have had more things to hand on to our kids. So language is important, leaders, and here's maybe the key, and you're going to get this slide deck, but here's maybe the key quote, and this lady's brilliant. Marilee Goldberg says, well, language structures reality, and can we keep that in mind as we talk to our people, as we continue to try to generate culture during this time of isolation? But questions help structure language. And the one thing that I'm learning as a leader that I have much control over are the questions that I can ask to develop intentional questions so that we can help to create resilience and restructure language. And the language, certainly the inner language and the outer language. We're going to talk a little bit about coaching and use questions in our coaching as a leader. And I love this example of coaching, right? In the 15th century, that was the, that's what they called a coach. And obviously it was a wagon. But I love that idea, right? Conveying valued people from where they are to where they want to go. Love you to think about some of the people that you're on the phone with today, right? Where do they need to go? Where do they want to go? And what is their value? You know, some pretty good coaches over the years that we can learn from. Phil Jackson in basketball. And Phil was once asked, how do you win championships? And he said 3 words. It's good, eh? You guys are good at this as leaders. What do we have to pay attention to in this new environment? And that's a great challenge also. Okay, I know some of you have seen this before, but I want to challenge you again. And I want you to look and just count. And we're going to open up, go ahead and open up your mutes just so that we can have some interactive time together. I want you to count the number of passes that the white team makes. And there's a bit of a hitch here. So be looking
Ryan,
for other
you can unmute all if you like. You can unmute them all together.
Perfect. Let me go to up top here and manage participants. Wow. Thank you, Liam. Everybody's, I think I unmuted all. There we go. Beautiful.
It goes one at a time. It's working.
Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'll come back and mute you later. How's that? So I'm going to just go to this like this, and I'm going to get you to watch and count how many passes did the white team make. Are you ready? All right, team. How many passes did the ladies in white make?
14.
14. Anybody else?
I'm going to say 15, Ryan.
All right, 15. Anybody else got a guess?
16.
Excellent, 16. So the answer was 16. And then the question is, how many people saw the gorilla?
Yep.
Okay, so who didn't see the gorilla? Just give me a shout out. Okay, cool. And then just tell me how many people have seen this before. Okay, some have seen this before. Here's the point. I asked you to count, obviously, the passes that the team in white was making, and so a gorilla walks right through the screen. It's a famous Harvard study, and I'm going to show you. Can I show you again? So you see the gorilla. Now, if you've seen this movie before, this video before, I want you to look for 2 more changes. So there's actually, this is the new version. There's actually 2 new changes that happen. So now you don't have to count the players in white passing the ball. Let's look for the gorilla. This is such a cool study. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Now, somebody give me some feedback. Who missed the gorilla the first time? Okay.
Yeah, I did, Ryan, for sure. It's Chris.
Isn't that crazy, Chris?
Yeah. Would that be, I read something recently, I'm not sure it'd be the same thing. Your mind has so much stimulus going on throughout the day that it's preconditioned to focus on fewer items. And the article I read, was it amazing when you're investigating and purchasing a certain vehicle,
Yep.
They call it a particular style of Mercedes-Benz. It's amazing how when you're thinking about that purchase, how many times you actually see that vehicle on the road, on the highway. They've always been there, but it's never been in the fore of your mind. And now that you're consciously deciding whether to purchase that type of vehicle, suddenly they appear out of nowhere,
Yes.
numerous times a day. Is that something similar to that study? Like you're so focused
Very
on
much.
what you asked that your mind is kind of tuned everything else out.
Very, very good, Chris. Totally. The little piece of science that I have experienced there and have read about, it's called the reticular activating system. And it actually heightens our vision and our focus on things that we commit to and things that we focus on.
Okay.
In this area, this is a famous Harvard study, and obviously about 50% of the people that see this for the first time don't see the gorilla. Okay, so the idea is blind spots for sure. I asked you to do a task, and our minds didn't see the gorilla walk by. Now, there was 2 other things that changed in the video. Did anybody see other changes?
One of the girls left.
Yeah, one of the ladies in black left early, and
Screen change.
excellent. So the back curtain changed from red to gold. So this is the new version of the video if you've seen it in the past. And it's amazing what's happening behind the scenes, right? A gorilla actually walks right through. That's a crazy thought. So, just a quick metaphor around blind spots, right? And the gorillas, that are probably, in the minds of our people right now. And so how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to talk through that? One of the things that Liam and I talked about as we were thinking about this time together was to really focus in on this leadership component of coaching. So coaching insight, obviously we want to really focus on coaching resilience. And the only little bit of history that I have, leaders, is, I'm 61 years old. I'll turn 62 this month. And started playing, hockey and sports at 5. And I've been coached for, 55 years, right? Like I've had some amazing coaching happen in my lifetime, and I've had some not so amazing coaching happen. So I'll try to share some of those insights as we keep moving here. Leading the shift was our first session, and with a few of you have been through this, and I'm just going to zip through so that we have that sort of current understanding of the 5 mindsets that are really running your people from home. And then how can we coach that energy? So we'll zip in on this, and this will go quick. I do want to get on the same page though. This is called our performance process. And we do a lot of work around this, and jump in for the 3 or 4 of you that have seen this before and give us your insights. But at the end of the day, even isolated, we all have to create results. So what are those results? And if you think about the results that we have to generate, The gift of sport, I believe, leaders, is that sport tells us this: championship habits deliver championships. And so the habits that we have in our company either deliver the results that we need or not. And those are collective, right? And those are where we go unconscious, where we've practiced a skill so often that it's just part of what we do and it's part of who we are. The actions that we take, and we're going to call action conscious thought, where we have to actually think about things. Like right now, you're in conscious thought. They accumulate into the habits of our business that drive the results of our business. And as many of you know, this happens in business, but this is really the great connector between sport and business. You can see the Calgary Flames, when they're on, right, it's the habits, it's habitual, they're just playing, they're in flow. But when they're off, I'll bet if you could go in that dressing room, one of the things that their coaching staff's talking to the players about is stop thinking. Stop thinking. Because when we are in conscious thought, we can only access around 40 bits per second in our brain. But if we can move to non-conscious thought, we can actually access close to 2 million bits per second in our brain. So we want to be in that place of habit. Now, leaders, here's the aha moment for me as a leader, and that is that all action comes out of belief system. I think this is a really interesting thought as we think about the fears, the worries, and the anxiousness of our people through this time. What does that do to belief system? Really, the question is, leaders, on conversations today and for the rest of the month, how will you be cognizant of the fact that the belief system and the mindset that your people are taking on needs to be continuously nourished through your conversations and through your I guess communication is what I wanted to say there. So how do we do that as a leader, right? Because that will drive action, habit, and result, and it will also help our people frame this crisis in a certain way, with or without resilience. Sometimes it's easier to see it this way, right? So you've got results, habits, actions, belief system, mindset, results, or experiences at the bottom. And sometimes, easier to see it that way. And then, from a change point of view, and I want you to start thinking from a question point of view. What are the questions that you need to sort of talk about with your people? Are you trying to change outcome results? Or do you need outcome questions? Do you need to, and I would imagine most of us are asking process questions. How are we going to get this done in the different environment? Certainly the hard part as we think about culture from house, from home, from somewhere else, is this idea of identity. Like, how are we going to sustain the identity that we had as a culture in a different situation? And then I won't get into it today, but there's a lot of science around experiences. And this experience will actually shape, obviously, our people. And the question is, how will we influence the way that this experience is going to shape our people? Okay. Love that thought by an old timer. Thank you, Aristotle. And we want to jump into just very quickly this idea of thinking. Our goal as a leader is to actually impact the thinking of our people. When we're on, we have high impact on thinking. Now, some of you, we've spent some time on this. Can anybody give us a sort of a definition or a description of that word, of metacognition? Has anybody got a good descriptor? Not an easy word. So can I just honor you, leaders? I have asked that question to 2,700 CEOs now. I'm closing in on 300 tech and Vistage sessions across North America, and 3 CEOs out of 2,700 have understood the concept of metacognition. Can I just say this? I'd love all of us on this call to become really good at this concept. Metacognition is very simply this. We get our people to think about their thinking. Could you write that down for me somewhere? Metacognition means thinking about thinking, okay? And when our leadership's on, we are actually influencing the thinking of our people. And I want that to be on your mind now as we look at coaching the 5 mindsets that are going to run your business, certainly have in the past and will in the future. Okay, William James, love his thought here as we jump into the model. We have to have this idea of stress in our minds, don't we? And this concept of one thought over another is such a powerful thought, not easy, but powerful. So leaders, if you have your little brochure there, you don't need to have it, but if you have it either on your Word doc or if you've printed it out, I'd love you to scratch up the Thinking Tendencies model page. And you'll see it in a minute here. There's a visual. But basically, my wife Jenny and I built this little model. A few of us have been through it. And we'll just refresh the model quickly. And then we're going to look at how to coach the model. How do we coach that resilient energy? Okay. So we got positive thoughts here. Obviously, we all have positive thoughts. Not an easy thing during this time of crisis. Not an easy thing when we wake up in the morning and whether it's COVID or price of oil or something else, right? It impacts our thinking. Obviously, we've got negative thoughts. We got lots of those. Some scientists suggest that about 80% of our thinking tends to be negative first. That's crazy. So really, as we mature as leaders, one of the things that we do is we are much more in control of what we want to think versus how we respond with our thinking. Okay, then we have past thoughts, we have future thoughts. This is such a simple model, and the book will get done by the end of the summer. This is our next book that we're writing. And so we want to take this sort of structure in this model, and we want to look at 5 pieces of thinking, and we're going to call it 5 new languages, okay? So in the bottom left, leaders, could you actually write this in for me? Could you write in past negative thinking? So that's the first of 5 new sort of mindsets, 5 new pieces of language that we're going to talk about. And thank you for being unmuted because I'd love you to jump in on this. How would you describe past negative thinking? What words come to mind? No wrong ideas, just fire away.
Regret.
Regret for sure. That's the big word, right? What else? Give me some more.
Shame.
That's a really good one. Fire that in there too.
Hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, that's so good. Hindsight's always 20/20. Couple more.
Resentment.
That's really good. So past negative thinking, we've got stuff that we resent for sure. Could I fire one in? I've been thinking about this, for a while now. Is that this is where blame lives too, right? This is where we blame others, and this is where we blame ourselves. So past negative thinking is a really interesting place. And would you agree that past negative thinking, if we take it in a negative context, can actually deflate the energy personally and culturally? So if you're on a phone call this week with one of your people, or you're on a Zoom call, or you're on a GoToMeeting call, and you're hearing a lot of past negative conversation, you're going to know that your team's in past negative, and you're going to honor that. And then the goal is that you're going to actually be able to shift that language. Okay. Now, the one thing I want to do is I want to make sure we're balanced here around this model. Past negative thinking is not all negative, right? If we, in the NHL, often past negative is what we call video, right? Like you take a kid, if you're a coach, you sit him down, you show him his last 20 shifts, and you say, what were you thinking there? So if past negative thinking can be viewed in the context of learning, it can become a very powerful opportunity to move forward. So past negative can either suck energy or it can change our future, depending on how we frame some of the stuff that we're focused on. So obviously we could go much deeper, we won't, but one of the key, one of the 5 mindsets we want to be aware of is that our people could be stuck in past negative thinking. Let's move, bottom right, put in future negative thinking. Write that in for me. And how do we describe future negative thinking, leaders? Some of you have had a little while to think about this. What is future negative thinking?
Brian, would that be the, the oh no, here we go again syndrome?
Totally. I love that.
Fear.
Right?
Fear.
Yeah, fear lives there. Totally.
Fussing
Any-
about the future of this economy.
Totally. 100%. Like there's lots of anxiety there, right? In future negative thinking.
Doubt.
Sorry?
Doubt.
Oh, great word. Lots of doubt. This idea of future negative is really interesting as a leader. Mark Twain helps us out here. Mark Twain said, if a cat steps on a hot stove, that cat will not step on a hot stove again. The problem is the cat won't step on a cold stove either. Like, that is so instructive. Most of our next revenue in most of our businesses is going to be on the other side of the cold stove. But our people tend to not go there because they got burnt last time. Wow. Future negative thinking's where our teenagers lose the job before they interview. Future negative thinking is where our NHL teams lose the cup before they play. And leaders, can I say this about your people right now? This is the greatest concern for you as a leader in today's COVID-19 environment, right? Trying to get your people much out of future negative and much into what we're going to call a much more productive mindset. So future negative, by the way, future negative is not all wrong, right? The higher you go in your leadership position, you have to get into future negative. These are called the contingency plans of our business. We have to spend time here. But what we're going to ask you to do as a leader is be intentional around future negative thinking. Go there, literally put a timer on how much time you're going to spend in future negative and get out of there, because your people emulate your energy. Okay? There's a lot that we do. You know that we're going to do in 15 minutes what typically takes, a full day. But could we agree that, future negative often paralyzes the energy of our people? So one thing we want to be very cognizant of as we have conversations, as we communicate to our people online, is that many of our people are paralyzed because of the situation that we find ourselves in. And we want to have, the right sort of opportunity, especially through questions, to move them and move their thinking into a new place. So what we called this last time, and we'll call it again, is that's the defensive zone. Do you ever have to play defense in your business? 100%, right? Long term, is it ever any fun? I don't know. It's pretty draining, actually. So let's get above the line here. That's Dick loves to call it above the line, below the line. And I love the way he does that. So if you look at this top left, actually write in the words for me: past positive thinking. What key words come to mind? Let's do this quick. Past positive thinking. What are some of the words that come to mind?
Ryan, I'll just ask you to unmute everybody because they're a little reluctant. You can do that.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. I didn't know that I muted. So
Well, I think that every individual does as they go along to keep the background noise quiet.
there we
And,
go.
You're asking for words that come to mind for past positive thinking.
Past positive thinking. There we go. Is everybody in?
Yeah, Ryan, how about pride?
I love that word. Yeah, pride's awesome. Other words. What comes to mind? Past positive thinking.
Reminiscing.
Love that. So you're reminiscing on good times, right?
Celebrating?
Celebrate. Love it. These are the wins of our company, and these are the wins of our marriage. These are the wins of our family. These are the wins of our life, right?
Victories,
Looking back. Sorry, I missed it.
victories or championships.
Yeah, totally. And so the idea of past positive leaders is this is a great place to regenerate the energy of your people. Every once in a while, get out of the coronavirus and thought process and get back and focus our people on what we did well and the victories and the wins of our company, right? Not easy in this environment, but as much as possible, we got to get up into past positive. The other thing that you do as a leader, and I know you do it very well, is that you actually thank people for the great work they're doing, and that takes them into past positive. They want to be thanked for the great work they've done in the past, okay? And that regenerates energy, just a reminder. And then very quickly, future positive thinking, write that in. And give me some ideas. What is future positive thinking? What comes to mind?
Optimism.
Optimism's the key component. Agreed? Give me some more.
Hope.
That's such an important word today. Would we agree, leaders, apparently science tells us we can live without water for a long time, food for a while, air for a little bit, but we can't live without hope. And so one of the things that you are as a leader through this crisis is leaders are deliverers of hope. So we want to be really cognizant of the fact of how much future positive is in our messaging and in our conversations, okay? And that helps activate the energy of our team. So we're going quick here. We call that playing offense and playing defense. And can I say this very carefully, leaders? This is not a positive thinking model. This is not think about a Mercedes-Benz and you get one. That's not the goal. But is positivity to negativity in every client relationship, in every employee relationship, in every communication important? 100%. And we're going to give you 2 ratios from science that's going to prove that, okay? So then, this idea of sort of coaching energy, how do we see our people through the energy of the thinking tendencies model? And I love Tony Schwartz's idea, right? That energy, not time, is the fundamental currency of high performance. Alain Vigneault, my head coach when I coached in Vancouver, I asked him one night late, Elaine, what's the number one thing that you focus on as a head coach? And Elaine never hesitated. He said, the energy of my team. The energy of my team. So here's a rhetorical question. Don't answer it, but think about it. How's the energy of your team, right? We're going to talk about how do we influence that energy through coaching. Obviously, there's some things in our environment that, you know, supply, others suck. Here's your ratio. Marcel Luceda says that in our culture, and this is not in our working from home culture, because I'm interested in what that should be. But in our work culture, we need 3 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction to hold what we've got. Okay, 3 to 1. So here's the key. It's not 3 things that we say. It's 3 things that, you know, that these are interactions. So in the workplace, it's a smile, right? It's a, hey, can I grab you coffee? Really, the question is, how do we get this into, how do we get a 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1 ratio in the communication, in the connections that we have as we're doing this from a remote base? That's our question. And as a bit of a break here, here's what I'd like to do. And I'm going to try to do this properly. I'm actually going to see if I can pull this up. Okay. Where am I going? I'm trying to go to the rooms here. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to put you in rooms, team. I think I'm going to pair you up. And then I'll ask you to come back in about 2 or 3 minutes. I'll bring you back. But here's your question. Have a quick little discussion around how you are maintaining or accelerating a 3 to 1 positive to negative interaction ratio in the COVID-19 environment, okay? So just have that conversation, have some fun, and then I'll bring you back. And you give me a thumbs up when you're in rooms.
Hey Ryan, just a quick question. Do you mean 3 to 1 ratio for my staff or for me personally?
That's a great question. So it would be for both. So talk about how you sustain that ratio. Okay, everybody? Are you in rooms is my question. I think you're in breakout rooms 1 and 2. So is that enough? Have some fun talking.
a.m.
All right.
I didn't mean to do that. I hit a button. I was trying to clear a box. Did you throw me back in my room? I don't know if you- Sorry, Ryan.
That's okay.
Maybe we're a breakout group.
Yeah, I'm actually bringing everybody back. So
Oh, it said it was going to do it in 58 seconds or something, and then
Yeah.
I clicked OK, and then I ended up here. So I should have done
That-
that, I guess.
that's okay. Give me some of your ideas. You and I can have a talk for 20 seconds.
Sure. Well, we were just talking to one of our members. We ended up in a group of 6, and he said he didn't think he was doing a good job. And I asked him, "Are you doing it for yourself? Like, are you fueling your own fire first?" I'm a big believer in that you have to have positive energy. You have to convince yourself that you're doing all right first, and then show up. And
Yes.
I didn't get to hear his answer because I pushed the button at the wrong time.
Yeah. No, that's really good. That's really good. We're just chatting away here. Everybody's back. Give us a flavor of some of the conversation. Just maybe one person jump in and give us a bit of a flavor. How do we sustain or increase that 3-to-1 positivity to negativity ratio?
All right. Ryan, as we were talking to one of our members who didn't think he was doing a good job, and I asked him, "Are you doing it for yourself?" And so I think it's got to start with you. Was
Yeah.
the theme I think we're going to get to, but I'm not sure. I ended up
Yeah.
pushing a button. And either they kicked me out of the room or I voluntarily left.
Yeah, they didn't kick you out. They were enjoying it. So we would all agree, leaders, that that's such a truth, isn't it? That the hardest part about leadership is that we're in this position where we have to try to lead me first. We have to sustain and find that place of energy and of positivity and of moving forward. And it is not easy, but that is the job of leadership, because it comes out our pores, right? It comes out our energy. So good job there. I'm going to just pop on and jump back into my screen. Our goal, we're going to have one more time in groups, and we're actually going to do a little coaching of each other. But I just want to zip through this idea of ratio, because a guy by the name of Gottman actually adds to this. John Gottman says that it takes a 5-to-1 ratio in our primary relationship. So just a reminder, certainly this is us and our spouse. This is us and our kids. This is us and our direct reports. This is us and the people that we're very close to. And so the 5-to-1, it actually is very interesting. As you think about it, reduces the amount of people that can give the interaction, and it puts more onus on us. So keep that in mind as we go through this crisis. Think a couple of key thoughts from Brian Tracy, right? The key to success, is to focus our conscious mind on the things that we desire, not on the things that we fear. Not easy. Socrates, right? The secret to change is to focus our energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And I think at the end of the day, leaders, and that's the conversation we just had. People don't see the world as it is, right? They see it as they are. I really believe that this is the type of training that my wife Jenny and I are doing with companies. It's often less about, here's a sales funnel, let's see if this will help you. And it's more about, how do you grow the resilience and the mindset and the heartbeat of people? So we're focused on the win or the loss, right? I'm going quick here. We're drawn by the future that we want as a leader and as a company, or we're distracted by the past that's, very much disappointing. And then the words count. Agreed? Language is important. The way that we say things really gives indicators to our people, right? It's a challenge or it's a threat. And it has different application, but also different emphasis. I'm just going to go back to the space. We're going to jump into one more mindset and then coaching, and we'll be finished up. But this is just such an important piece that Frankl says, right? between the stimulus and response, there's a space. And I wonder, leaders, if that isn't what we're playing with right now. How do we help to frame that place for ourselves personally and for our people? Okay. So why are we doing this? We've done a lot of work in this area, and science has done a lot of work in this area. If you and I, through this crisis, can shift our people into a little more positive from negative, neutral, or stressed, right? We can increase production and productivity. Obviously, if, you know, we can be a little better in the area of sales, and then certainly let's touch on the fifth mindset. Could you write in there that our fifth mindset we call the flow zone? Okay, write that in there. The world of sport calls it playing in the zone. The world of science now calls it flow. And we want you as leaders to get to be experts at influencing flow in your business. Even as this comes back from homes and back from isolation, flow over the next 10 years will be what leaders need to focus on. Here's what flow is, right? You're 100% focused, you're increased focus, you have inner clarity, timelessness, intrinsic motivation. There's that point of intrinsic versus extrinsic, and complete serenity. So flow is the place that you need your people to be more often. Here's where it lives, right? As your people increase skills, that's why you have to challenge them more. And Daniel Goleman gives us a great little look at the idea, the ratio, the model between high performance, low performance, high stress, low stress. You know, low stress, we chill out, we re-energize, we're creative, right? We're just in a place of low performance, low stress. I'm wondering about some of our people, right? We're in that high stress, low performance place. And it's going to be normal for some, right? We're going to be worried. This is where we're anxious. This is fight or flight. And then what's really interesting about the positioning of flow leaders is that it's not no stress, right?
Oh,
It's enough stress. Go ahead. Is there a thought there? No problem.
Hey, did you want to make a comment? No, go ahead, Walter. or
Okay,
Ryan.
thank you. So one thing we'd love you to do, we won't have time right now, but we'd love you to think about with your company, how do you as a leader help your people dial back from frazzle to flow? And how do you as a leader help your people dial up from fade to flow? Okay? So I want you to think about that concept of how you do that. So we're going to jump into questions. I had a chance to coach some great players. And it often, the personal connection or coaching I had with players would be from a question point of view. Michael Grabner was going through a goal scoring slump, and I asked him one question, and he scored 3 goals that night. Here was my question: how will you get back into flow tonight after every shift? That was my one question that I had him focus on. You know, Mason Raymond was struggling, and I asked him a couple questions, and he went on to have a real good year with Vancouver, and then went on to play well with Calgary. So some of the ideas of questions can really change the focus and the motivation of people. You know, if you think about Carol Dweck's work, I don't know if you've read her book called Mindset. She talks about a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Well, in our model, the growth mindset's above the line. It's in the offensive zone. The fixed mindset's in the what we call the defensive zone, below the line. And here's some of the questions that she says really helps people up into that growth mindset, okay? And you're going to get, I'll go quick here, but you're going to get this slide deck. I'll get this to Liam. So I'm going to pick one out, right? What steps did you take to make yourself successful today? Right? How did you keep going today when things got really tough? Those are great types of questions that help people get out of the fixed mindset up into the growth mindset. You're going to have some feedback comments to help develop a growth mindset. I won't go through them right now, but you'll get that. Okay. Finally, insight. One of the things that questions helps us to do as a leader is to create insight. And I'll just a sec here, and I'll just take a minute and mute us, and then we'll be all set. And then you're going to coach each other. Where am I? There we go. Got it. Very good. So then I'm going to go to share screen. There we go. Beautiful. Loving this technology. Back to Marilee Goldberg. Well, language structures reality. Questions help structure language. So for the rest of our time together, let's really focus in on questions. Can I say this, leaders? Here's my hero. Jacques Lemaire was my favorite NHL coach, and I was wondering why a while back, and you know what hit me? Is Jacques asked questions. Jacques asked questions. The only NHL coach I ever had that consistently asked great questions. I had a little value acronym I'm going to lay out for you, and you'll get this on your slide deck. The V stands to talks about validating the relationship. As you're talking to your people, you know, if you're trying to get their energy high, you might want to start with them and thank them for the way that they contribute to your enterprise. Obviously, the A is to ask brilliant questions. The L is to really listen in. Right? You're listening to have this idea of where are they at. The U is to understand their point of view before you ask them to understand yours. And the E is to finally empower action. So the value acronym is a really good structure in the idea of communicating well and the idea of leadership and empathy. If you need to add some more empathy into this situation of COVID-19 and the way you're communicating, you'll get this slide, but that's a good opportunity. Every once in a while, the idea of scoring questions is powerful, right? So instead of just saying, how you doing today? Right? 1 to 10, 10's amazing. You know, what's your number? How are you doing? And then this idea of listening to answer versus listening to ask. Can I say this, leaders? Listening to answer is when you and I are in the leadership mode, because we're going to give good ideas. But listening to ask is when you and I are in the coaching mode. And we're literally listening to our people, and we're going to ask a next question. That, for me, is the essence of coaching. And we're not going to do it all the time. We have to listen to answer often. But when we can listen to ask, we're going to have much more empathy. We're going to have much more direct connect with the emotions of our people. Okay? Awesome. One more concept, and then I want to just take 10 minutes and put you in rooms and have you coach each other. I want to add a connection here, a new piece. And so the model of the 5 mindsets, I want to take into this new science of mental contrasting. And this lady, Gabriella Ottinger, does a brilliant job, and it's a great read. I know you're busy right now, but if you have time to read, Rethinking Positive Thinking will give you some really good ideas, okay? Here's what she says, she says, don't dwell on the obstacle. Don't go there first. She says that the brain always, for whatever reason, wants us to start on the wish. And so this works really well from our construct of our model, is start with future positive with your people. Well, what do you want more of, right? What are the outcomes that you want to drive? And start up there. Then, after you allow yourself to indulge for a while, that's her word, up into the future positive wish, the goal, the outcome desire, then move to the obstacle and ask yourself and ask your people the question, what obstacles are in your way of creating that future positive desire? So that's what she calls mental contrasting. Okay, and then she's going to add an element, but I want you to just see the opposite. So reverse contrasting is when we go to the obstacle and we start on the obstacle and then we try to create solutions, okay? Mental contrasting is when we start above the line. We start up in the area of goals and of outcome desires, of what do you want more of? How do we get more of that? And then we look at obstacles. And what she suggests is that mental contrasting allows our brain to actually create the tension in our non-conscious brain where we follow it and we focus more and we get things done quicker. Okay? So we're going to walk through this a little bit, and I want you to think about your own leadership and just do this just quickly. What's your comfort zone as a leader right now? And this is more of a question for you to think about. You know, what are the things that you're comfortable around? And then you know those things. What areas of that comfort zone or what areas of your leadership do you have less comfort in? So you might actually ask yourself that question to find out a place that you want to adjust or change. So once you have that area of your leadership, then go to the obstacles that would hold you back from increasing that part of your leadership. And what Gabriella does is she actually puts it into a little acronym. So what's your wish and what are the outcome desires and outcomes that will come from creating or sustaining and making that goal happen? Then what are the obstacles from getting that done? And finally, what is the plan that you have to actually make that happen? So here's a look at what she does in her book, right? So let's say I want to, one of my goals is to exercise more. Well, I'm going to jog every evening. It's going to make me feel better, more energized, more balanced, right? Then the obstacle that I know of for sure that I can conquer is when I get home, I'm tired, or end of day, I'm tired. So what's my plan? And she uses if-then planning. Is this idea of if I come home tired, I'll at least get my shoes on and walk outside. That's the least I'm going to do. So that gives you just a very quick feel for how mental contrasting, going to future positive first, then looking at future negative obstacles, and then building a plan to overcome those obstacles really helps your people focus through this very unfocused time.
Ask a
And
question.
please jump in.
Yeah, with respect to, if you could just back up for me.
Oh, totally.
Just to the next slide where it's the jogging in the evening. Just my gut feel on this is if the wish is jogging in the evening, that seems like the plan to me.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So she could have positioned it maybe differently. How would you position that?
I would ask, for what reason do you want to jog in the evening?
Yeah, and so it's probably more about generating energy or having more health, or would that be sort of your concept?
yeah, maybe she wants to lose weight, or maybe she wants to run a marathon, or maybe she wants to increase her time. But what an action like that seems to be the plan. That's an action, the jogging.
I agree. Good point. That's a good catch. Thank you for that. So I'm going to get you to, and by the way, just a note, when we whoop things, right? So we wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. There's some great science, and she's a scientist, so you'll read it in the book around how that gives us, better outcomes, and it really helps our people focus our non-conscious brain on the things that we're going to start to do. So what I'd love you to do, and we'll just do this for 4 minutes each, is I would love you, and I'm going to try to put you into rooms that are 2 in a room. And Liam, you might have to help me here, but I'm going to try to do that. And I'd like you to walk through this, just coach each other in this area, right? Of, okay, so start off, what are some of the goals that you have during this time? What's a wish? What's a dream? And then look at the obstacle or the opponent, that's going to hold us back from achieving that. And then walk your player through, what are some of your plans that, that you could talk about, that you could brainstorm, some of your ideas to create that goal. And that's what we're going to do. I'm going to leave this slide up here. So we're looking at our future positive wish, our outcome. We're then going to go to our obstacle or our opponent, and then we're going to build that plan to overcome it. If you receive the brochure or the Word doc that I sent, there is some questions that I put in there that you could follow along just a little bit, okay? I do want to try this though. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to break out, and let's look at options.